I mean that.
So good to see you, Jenny. It's so good to see you, and it's so good to welcome Shanti to the program, a great friend. And in the audience, welcome very much to Conversations. It's a personal pleasure and honor to be able to welcome to the program one of MNN's own. She's come and joined us more recently and so forth, and she's a member of the team here at MNN producing programs. She's also billed as a metaphysician and a miracle worker, and I had her billed as she has a master's of social work, and she is a reverend. And we're going to be talking about all that. I had her billed as an autodidact because I know from experience and having great talks with her that she's very self-starting in terms of running down things that she's interested in. And that is one of the things I think is one of the most admirable characteristics of a human system, and also a comprehensivist. And with all of that said, one more thing. We're talking to you, my dear, on your 83rd birthday. So happy birthday and welcome to Conversation.
Thank you very much, Carol.
Can't believe you're 83 years old.
Neither
because
can
you're
I.
so alert and so forth, and so young in spirit. But all of that said, and we'll get on to that a little later, share your own background, born and raised, educated, and let's talk about, I see you've even got a Course of Miracles in your lap and so forth, but could you share your own background, born and raised, that sort of thing, as a way to wade in?
Okay, thanks. I was born in the city of New York, and I was raised here, and I went to City University for my undergraduate program.
Was that liberal arts?
Liberal arts.
Yeah.
And then I went to NYU for my master's.
Okay, in social work.
In social work, I was in their first certified program.
No fooling, really?
Way back in 1958.
Wow.
57, actually.
Okay, yeah, 57.
And they were certified in 58. Anyway.
So that bespeaks someone who's interested in helping, if I may, social work, some of the least among us in terms of the social order and so forth,
but
it seems.
Right. Well, yes, but they don't have to be impoverished.
No.
And they really don't. I mean, it was I was trained I think that social work school in my time, and I'm pretty sure it's the same today, we were trained extremely well. I went into a family service. Okay. And so I became a family counselor after inquiring which would be the best way to be able to help people with who are emotionally challenged. Okay.
Right.
So I was strongly advised to go into family rather than going into a psychiatric program like going into hospitals. Because frankly, I wasn't interested in working with people in the hospitals as much as I was working with ambulatory people who have ordinary problems, but they can be huge.
Absolutely, huge. And they're manifested. Probably all levels of society, there are emotional problems that are really very, very challenging. Yeah, as you say, yeah.
Right. Well, I moved up from there. I expanded. I kept on taking all kinds of programs. In the early days, they had encounter groups and all of the people that have still got a good name were very prominent then, and it was a fermentation. Freud was beginning to become passe. Really?
He was a giant in his time.
In his time,
still
yes.
is, I think.
But there were so many other ways of being able to look at the human dilemma, and that's one of the things that I was really most interested in. I didn't want to get trapped. I didn't want to get boxed in. I really didn't.
Right.
And that was risky. It was like functioning with integrity.
Okay,
and it was challenging, and I didn't want to get washed out. And for example, they wanted people to pay, even if they couldn't pay. And I said, if people really want help, why not just give it to them? And there was this big argument that I had with administration or my supervisor.
This would be within what agency or in what system?
The system was in a family agency.
A government thing, or was it private sector, or was it?
It was Jewish Family Service.
Jewish Family Service. Okay,
Okay, and it didn't restrict its services to the Jews, though. But that was the name it was given. So I was put on the line. You know, in other words, if you don't really want to get the money from the people, there's the door. I mean, they didn't say it in so many words, but it was very clear to me.
Yeah.
And that rattled me a lot. It was the beginning of my disillusionment with systems. You know,
the system. Maybe
right,
we
exactly.
referred to the system.
Yeah, the system.
And
right.
we did a program with a woman that aired yesterday, and or today actually. She said she had done time in prison and so forth. Then went on to become a best-selling author, and she said it's all about money. You know, the established society and the thing. It's all about money. The economics looms so large, but there are all these other kinds of considerations of how people can cope within a system that in the fullness of time is going to have to be altered to suit more the better aspects or the better angels of our nature, as Mr. Lincoln said, you see. Right. There's a big transformation needed still ahead of us, I think, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that we're about. I think that's... You know, to be an activist, actually, to be a transforming agent, because, it's very difficult.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to be able to change anything outside when we have all that we can do to change ourselves, and that's my emphasis, quite frankly.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, in other words, how to be able to arrive at peace, to arrive at a basis for our existence, which is to be happy. I mean, I don't know if there's any other reason.
You mentioned before some of the people who still hold up that were like, I don't know, were you talking maybe Maslow, or you're talking, who are some of the people that informed your consciousness in terms of the condition that you were trying to help others, and who are some of the voices that still hold up, as it were, in your view, that were inspirational to you?
You know, some of my reading was very inspirational, because I was moving from the traditional professional role of being a counselor or a therapist. Words like that had an effect upon me that I found somewhat disturbing, because I really wanted to find another niche for myself.
Okay.
And I'm not going to name all those people that I found I gleaned something from, because that was an intellectual approach. My reading, actually, though, informed me in a much broader range. In other words, I read spiritual things. I read from the Bible to reading philosophers.
Who are some that have influenced you? Some light, or some people that were particularly inspirational to you? Like I loved Bucky Fuller. I thought he was an absolute wonder.
Right.
And Teilhard de Chardin, I thought was good.
Chardin was marvelous.
And you know, I like McLuhan reading on things, and so there's certain people. And then we all know Maslow.
There was Werner Erhard.
Werner Erhard, you were in Est, were you?
Yes, I was.
Did you get involved in that?
To the extent to which I would always plunge in. I mean,
yes.
I mean, you're in it, you might as well get everything you can get out of it.
Yes.
And I joined it because the people with whom I was working were in it, and I didn't feel that I was in any position to really converse with them just as a listener. I had to experience it.
Within the Jewish Families Center, there were a lot of people who were into Est and Werner Erhard?
I only stayed with the agency for half a dozen years.
I see.
And then I moved on and on and up and up and up.
To others, right.
Yes, I mean, onward and upward. I mean, that Excelsior.
Yes, Excelsior, right, the Excelsior State. Were you involved? It seems to me Werner Erhard was an offshoot from, it seems to me, just almost direct,
Bucky.
no, not Bucky, no. I think he came more out of L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology.
Well, he might
Scientology was a breakthrough thing with a lot of people, with the engrams, and they still got the church of Scientology. But I think L. Ron Hubbard was, Hubbard was an inspiration.
He was a Bucky Fuller man. He even had him on...
Erhard?
Erhard?
He was, okay.
Very much. He had him up on stage with him on occasions.
And he did that hunger thing, didn't he? He put a lot of emphasis on the hunger project.
He was the impetus. He was the catalyst, because what people would do would start initiatives, and he would support them.
Yeah,
that was a very prominent initiative.
I think everybody, in a certain sense, if you're talking like 70 or around in that period, everybody cottoned on to Mr. Fuller, it seems to me. He was as widely accepted in terms of people concerned with the larger issues as anybody else around, and yet he isn't probably as well known by the young people as he ought to be.
Yes.
It seems to me.
Yes, you're right.
You feel that way?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's somebody to repair to, yeah.
Absolutely. I worked for the American Foundation of Religion and Psychiatry.
Okay.
And in that time, I was the chief psychiatric social worker there.
Wow.
And yeah, but that's not to put a feather in my cap, because it was an organization that was primarily designed to give therapeutic credence to pastors.
Okay.
So it was a training center for them, and I was one of the trainers, and we trained them through the people who would come to the clinic for help.
The clinic was run as part of an institution or something?
It was
you
run
moved
by
from
Smiley Blanton,
okay, I don't know.
Well, Smiley Blanton was a big name in the therapeutic movement, but not in the New Age movement. He was a very interesting guy. He really was. And one of the things I learned from him, which shocked me and pleased me because it was never brought up. There were so many things that were obsolete today. You know? Touch your clients. You know, reach out and touch them.
Yeah.
You know,
physically.
Physically.
Yeah, yeah.
But nowadays, it's it's really taboo.
Hands off.
Hands off. I mean,
Yeah.
we're so. At any rate, that shocked me, and at the same time, it pleased me because there is nothing more profound than the human touch. There really isn't.
Okay.
You can get into an argument with somebody you know enough, care for, or even if you're in a group or in therapy, and you reach out and you touch their hand. Most people will respond.
Or a hug.
Or a hug.
Yeah, yeah.
I had
it's authenticity
it's
of
right,
feeling, is what you want to be able to express,
I had a T-shirt, one of those long ones actually, and it said "Hugs heal."
It's true, don't you think?
It
really is that kind of
does,
thing.
and I'm all for it.
You made a statement that it wasn't New Age; it was therapeutic. The therapeutic community, that would be psychology, psychiatry, social work, and then New Age. And you said it wasn't New Age, but you made it kind of a link in your mind between those two things. Can you address that?
Well, that's a tough one for me to address.
Okay.
I guess that would really represent I would be the combination of all of those.
Okay.
You know, but the most prominent influence, and that's when you asked me to talk about the people that influenced me or the books. The most profound influence is the Course in Miracles, without a doubt.
Thank you very much. Share it with the audience. The Course in Miracles.
That's really
I know it's a gigantic thing.
This is a hardcover of the smallest of the 3 books.
Yes,
and it's if you can.
Maybe you can. I don't know if that'll come in. It might.
Yes, it's the robot that'll do it.
Well.
And
I'm not sure if that's a lot.
All right, if it works, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
But it's the Course of Miracles.
It's a Course in Miracles. It's 3 books in one. It's got 3 volumes. The first is a text. The second is a workbook with 365 lessons, and the third is a teacher's manual.
Okay.
Now we could spend the rest of the time, as far as I was concerned, talking about the Course in Miracles.
It's a gigantic thing. I know. I had the Course in Miracles books, and I've misplaced them now, but I've had them as a major thing. Maybe you could share with me and with the audience the source of it. Where did it come from? What's its premise, and that sort of thing.
Okay. The Course came into existence at about the mid-'70s. Actually around 76, but we don't have to get perfect on it. Yeah. And it was a work that was introduced by way of hearing a voice. And the person who heard this voice was a professor of psychology in Columbia University.
Yes.
Okay. Without going through the whole background.
Has a name? Did he have a name, or her?
Well, she didn't want a name.
She did not. She
did not want
interesting.
She did not want it, and it has no name.
It has
It's endorsed by the Foundation for Inner Peace.
Okay. Was it like a channeling sort of thing?
It was like a channeling, exactly.
Okay, like Jane Roberts or something.
Like Jane Roberts,
yeah.
Exactly. Very influential part of my life, by the way.
Jane Roberts?
Jane Roberts.
Jane Roberts was a friend of mine.
Oh, you lucky man, you.
Well, she was wonderful.
Oh, I wish I had met her.
Oh, she was really wonderful.
She was amazing.
Yeah, she had that Seth thing. And the Seth materials.
All the Seth materials.
The Seth materials, Seth speaks and so forth, makes good sense to you in terms of understanding consciousness and so forth?
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
I found the Course in Miracles in the mid-'70s myself. It was brought to me by a very remarkable man whose name is Reverend John Mundy, M-U-N-D-Y.
Is that the guy up in Connecticut? That's not the one who writes about near-death experience? Moody?
Oh, Moody.
That's Moody, different.
No, Mundy has written.
Monday.
And he's got a book that'll be coming out shortly. But at any rate, he introduced the Course to me, and I was overwhelmed.
Really?
Oh, totally overwhelmed.
You had read the Seth stuff?
And I had read the
Seth. So you've been investigating altered states of consciousness and that sort of thing, which is part of what is thought New Age.
Well, that's another great influence.
Yeah.
Great influence.
Right.
All right. We're zigzagging through this, and that's fine with me. It's fine.
Okay.
I have no problem with it.
Okay.
Yes, I was. I had an experience when LSD was legal. I was introduced to it. I was very much interested in taking this adventure. I was not a pot smoker, even though it was legal. It was legal.
You were around when pot was legal? Did you say pot? No, LSD was legal.
Yeah, well,
before
LSD
it got put on
the
hit list.
In '68, when I was working at the Foundation for Religion and Psychiatry, one of my one of the people with whom I worked as was helping, was working for the IRS.
Okay.
And they were in touch. They were the ones who were in charge of drugs, and she told me that they were going to put it on the illegal list. So I made sure that I took the LSD while it was still legal.
I see.
But Harold, I want to tell you that was the most profound influence in my life. That and the Course in Miracles.
Well, what was the most profound? The experience of LSD, really, yeah?
See, it expands consciousness.
Well, we know what it does, yeah.
It whatever you can see in that experience tells you that it's available to you. And the idea, even with grass, is to be able to see how you can learn how to get yourself into that modality of thinking.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That was Hoffman, somebody in Switzerland.
Yes, he's the.
And it was about 48 or so when they came across this ergot or something. Yeah. And then it set it up. You had Timothy Leary and Alpert and all that, and the whole. Did you go to Woodstock by any chance?
No, I did not.
Would you have been of a mind to, or it just didn't work out?
Yes, I went to Washington, in the earlier marches.
63?
But I didn't. Yeah, but I didn't go. Did
you hear Mr. King?
No.
On the Mall? Okay.
No, not on the Mall.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Yes.
And you were involved in civil rights? And
Yes.
Yeah. Did you do any going to the South or anything like that?
No.
Freedom riding? No.
No.
It was dangerous. It really was dangerous to come against those dogs and things.
Some of my best friends had lived through it.
I'm sure they would have been, because you were in that kind of company, yeah. But anyway, you became very impressed with that, and then you got, and we know now what it is. It's really amazing, if I may, just for a second to digress, if you thought that was really important, because, I don't know, 30, 35 years ago, I think they discovered for the first time, I mean, knowledge is growing so exponentially now. We didn't even know, they didn't even know, I may be wrong, but there's certainly the public, much less even the science people, didn't know that there were such things as neurotransmitters. I think acetylcholine was the first, and that consciousness itself, or the working of the brain, is not hardwired, and that there are these synaptic cleft between the axons of the 10 to the 10th power neurons that make up the human brain, and that they are connected, and that there is a gap, and that a state of consciousness will be able to be, there can be a biochemical model for a state of consciousness. If you win the lottery and you win $1 million, there would be serotonin, dopamine, they will appear, and then the uptake, so that they have a biochemical model for all states of consciousness, from despair to joy. And they can be affected by, thought,
primarily.
Yogic disciplines and so forth.
Discipline of thought, too.
Yes.
And its whole concept is we are the product of our thinking. No more, no less. This is amazing when you start to think about it.
Say it again. We are the product of our thinking.
We are the
Is
product
that a
of
quote
our-
from
No,
somebody?
this is that's a
that
virgin
quote
statement.
Is that a
my
quote
mouth.
from yours? Do you have it trademarked? Can I use it? Can I put it on my quotes thing? You know, I mean, I don't want to run into any, you know, financial buzzsaws against all your army of lawyers. that are
Everything
gonna
I have is yours.
Yeah, okay,
Because
thanks.
everything that I have is yours.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Because yours is mine.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause we really are one.
Yeah, that is true.
We have to really understand that, though, because it's a profound statement that we don't really take the time to
contemplate.
To contemplate
Yes.
the vastness of it.
I
When
know.
we speak of God as one, and we speak of the word God, I mean, we just don't realize how glib we are in our conversations.
That's because God's been so abused, because he's been taken to be, our God is better than your God, so we'll come and throw you into the sea or overcome you
Well,
politically.
see, but this
it's
is-
been manipulated, that thing.
But that's all thought.
Yeah.
And the course is a course in mind training. It's like yoga of the mind.
Yoga. Yeah.
Yoga of the mind. It's asking us to just slow down and take in yourself. Search for it. Take it all in. Take it all in. And then sort it all out.
Right.
And without judgment,
Right.
without predetermination.
Right.
This is, you know, when you think.
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it? Isn't it
think-
huge?
yeah,
Yeah. Do you like the concept of Gaia? Are you familiar with Gaia?
Gaia, Earth.
The idea-
Earth is an entity.
because
Is an entity.
I think it's just axiomatic that the world and everything in it that we experience, it is all one system.
Yes.
In time and space.
Yes.
It's all one system.
Yes.
Whether we want to break it down to get understanding, and of
Right.
course there's all the
Right, of
divisions.
course.
But you understand what I mean? It
Of
really
course.
is all one system that we're all
Absolutely.
part of, including the
Absolutely.
creatures and the vegetation and the atmosphere and everything.
But we
yeah.
know so much,
Yeah.
and we're learning so much more, and yet
Exponentially.
Yes.
Yes.
But exponentially, we have not mastered ourselves. Because if we had mastered ourselves, there wouldn't be war. There would just be love. There would be peace. Think of what I'm saying.
Believe me, I've been thinking that for about 40 odd years, wandering in the wilderness of the inherited institutions that are outdated in terms of what the future
Well,
requires.
we're overwhelmed by the bombardment of all external thoughts, the
Right.
news, the media.
Right.
I mean, and our own attitudes.
All the propaganda.
All the propaganda.
that is used to manipulate people, right? And there's so much of that.
Okay.
You're
so
right.
now,
yeah.
so now the challenge in existence really is how to be able to think as God would think if we were indeed living up to our heritage. If we all say we're daughters and sons of God,
well,
the Creator. Let's not make a big deal out of, it's a Creator.
Yeah, I
I mean,
understand.
the creative force.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
The metaphors.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, we have a conversation. I'm very suspect of the concept of anything that is spiritual. I'm very suspect of it, or a God, or something of a larger context of the nature of the universe outside of material understanding coming out of the Enlightenment and science and our knowledge, and we're building within a historical pattern that we can understand. And I think it's very interesting, Shanti, that apparently from what they say, there's a great exhibit at the Natural History Museum I want to get to, somebody who's curating it, but it's got the evolution of human consciousness and the leading up to that. And I'd like to see that because that's interesting. But apparently we've been here 200, our species, up the hominoid line, we evolved apparently 200,000 years ago. So that means our species, and they say that we probably had something like 100 billion human beings have existed. We got about 7 billion now. And we evolved out of, in a natural way. But we had a self-reflective consciousness, and so we were able to ask questions that I don't think a crocodile contemplates, like what's it all about, and what's the universe, or anything. We could do that. So we had to dream up creation stories and so forth. That's the way I see the spiritual thing. And it's been used by political leaders to condition the citizens who would live under conditions that benefited the political leaders who have led the world, from Pharaoh to Hammurabi to the emperors of Rome, to the kings of feudal states where the serfs were wallowing around in the mud of poverty. And there's never been justice for the whole system. it's been a few who were running things ever since civilization started, and we don't know how it happened, hunting and gathering, the vast majority of our time here. But the spiritual things, I'm very distrustful of all the spiritual considerations or the meta considerations, and I know that that runs counter to a lot of the institutions that give meaning and ethics and so forth to our society, but I'm very suspect of them.
And I can understand exactly where you're coming from. I agree with you.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because remember, I did not like to be boxed in.
I heard that.
Social work.
I heard that
I don't want to
resonated.
be
Yeah.
boxed. I am not interested in institutionalized spirituality. That's what's so profound about the Course.
Thank you. Back to the Course.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is what is so profound. Remember what I was saying before, because I do see that there is a way of integrating, and I'm seeing it in some of the scientists of today, and some of the names you don't know, but that are making significant contributions. How to bring spirituality into business, big business. How to train people to see things from the perspective that the Course espouses. In other words, let me just...
How would you bring spirituality in? How do you bring spirituality in, or how do we define spirituality?
Maybe you don't let them
apart
know,
from religion.
Maybe you don't let... Good question. Maybe you don't let them know that it's spiritual. I mean, in other words, the word's bugaboo. It's like...
It is to me, yeah.
It is. Like socialism. Look what they were doing with the word socialism.
Well, I'm more comfortable with socialism than
but
spiritual.
There's a parallel that I'm drawing. It's a buzzword for obviously the way in which it's been presented is contextualized, and it's contextualized negatively. Socialism.
Well, speak for yourself, John Alden, but yes, I understand what you're saying. Or for a lot of people, it's not necessarily that. I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
all right.
It's a PR campaign.
Exactly,
yeah.
And same with spirituality. I mean, in certain quarters, if you say you're interested in spirituality, rather than saying I'm not interested in religion per se, I'm interested in spirituality.
Yeah.
If you would want to know what the distinction,
what is it?
It's like an ethics.
Well, why do you have to have something meta in order to develop ethics? Why can't we develop ethics out of the human experience, understanding, knowledge, knowing more, advancing? Ethics do not have to be based on some God or meta notion of the universe, except it's a convenient way to give it legitimacy. It's like a sacerdotal kind of class that sets up the rules of what the broader world is, and then they can manipulate people by it.
Okay.
For good or ill.
Harold, I love talking with you. Because
well, I love talking to you. That's why I was so glad we could do this program.
Because you inspire me to deepen my own thinking and challenge me to say, how can I get through to you to help you to see things which I know if you saw would give you greater peace.
I would love it. That's what I'm at. That's what I'm all about.
But it's
teach. Yeah.
It's you teach all the time. I teach all the time.
Yeah, you're an autodidact. We're both autodidacts.
By our very being.
Yeah.
Everybody is teaching everybody.
Okay.
I mean,
Again, for good or ill.
For good or ill.
Yeah.
Now, remember earlier when we were having this a little problem about whether we were going to scheduling and blah blah blah,
yeah.
and you were getting you agitated, and I wanted.
Well, I wanted to get this program in on your birthday, for crying out loud, for the record, for the Akashic record, for Jane Roberts.
You're beautiful. You really are. Yeah. When I'd said before, this is a course in mind training.
Yes, thank you. The Course in Miracles you're back to now. Good. Okay.
And I really live the course. I want people to really see me as a walking course. And that's a big responsibility I've taken on. I really realize it.
Good for you. Yeah.
And it's staying. Sure, I have all kinds of reactions like you do.
Yeah.
You said, I'm feeling for you, you said to me.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm fine. Well, you said you weren't. And I said, well, and what was I going to respond to that? Was I going to say, oh, you make me feel not so good when you're not feeling good. I want you to feel good. I said, no, because you don't make me feel anything. I'm responsible for my feelings.
Your reaction to whatever I do. Yeah.
I have to think, how can
That's an existential position.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I have to think of, what is it that I can do or say, or maybe just think,
Even that, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
because we are not alone in experiencing the effects of our thinking.
All right.
Or our
yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
But what we have to do is to learn how to think, because we think.
Is it enough to say critical thinking, or does that
Well,
factor into your
critical
way of
thinking is a very special kind of word. If you say critical thinking means to some people criticizing, as opposed to trying to refine our thoughts to being more exact. Okay.
In the face of advancing knowledge, which is again coming in exponential Niagara proportions in a pattern way to our understanding of what it's all about, Alfie.
And there you go again,
right?
And I love you. And it's true, what you're saying. I mean, I have to find your idiom. And that's one of the things I learned to do when I did a lot of therapy.
You did? Okay. Yeah.
I would listen to what was your that, you know, like a palette, an artist has a palette.
Yeah, right.
You know the palette. You say, oh, I can see, I recognize the palette. A composer has a style.
Right.
Okay, we have styles of thought.
Absolutely, and memes. And we have patterns. Pattern recognizing is one part of human consciousness. We can recognize patterns really well and relate them together as a whole system.
So what I want to do, and if I really want to, I want to know you. Harold is the sum substance of his thought processes.
Okay, yeah, thought, yeah, right. Okay, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
You're the sum, I mean, and that's what you do. You pour forth all of the influences that you have culled, and this is the way you respond.
And I try to do so comprehensively if I
Yes,
can.
you do.
So I go to the people who are comprehensive rather than the specialization, which is so characteristic of human intellectual endeavor, is they specialize everything out so much that nobody's thinking about the whole, like Fuller, or some of the other people who did, Chardin, or some of the people who have presented and thought about things in a very comprehensive way. That's why I wanted to call you, among other things, a comprehensivist, because you think that way. You think about relating patterns rather than going in depth into one particular aspect of reality. You would like to be able to relate them in a pattern way, which I think is very admirable and to be encouraged among us all.
Yes, thank you very much. But I want to thank you. I appreciate that very much, Harold. Let me ask you, how did you get into the thought systems that I don't mean just the thought systems, but what drew you into being the kind of humanness that you are?
Well, I don't know. It's just life's experience and everything. Just interested in everything. Always interested in everything.
Yeah.
And then along came, and then born into a certain time, and interested in everything. I think there should be a department at the university of everything.
Absolutely.
Rather than looking at all the division. Fuller had a very interesting, he said, the people who run the world, let's say geopolitical, or the thing who sets up the economic systems that bring so much distress to the human condition, and a great deal of the distress within the human condition is essentially economic, because we have an unjust economic system, and it's accepted as holy writ almost, and so forth, in terms of the canon we've accepted and been accepted by the economics profession and the geopolitical profession that it informs. So it's all economics and everything. And so you're just interested in everything. And so I took a degree in geography because I was interested in everything.
You took a degree in it?
PhD, did all the PhD work in that, and then became a professor.
Where?
And nowhere very prominent.
That's okay.
Wayne University in Detroit, Southern Illinois University, University of Utah, University of California at Long Beach, and then at New Paltz, upstate.
Cool.
At various universities taught.
State.
And I'm a pathologically anti-authoritarian. I really dislike authoritarianism in any kind of motion. I was drafted into the Army when I was young, and I did not like it at all. They tell you when to do everything. And I used to try and explain to the sergeants that we could do things democratically. And they didn't want to hear any of that.
Only want
they
robots.
want you to just march in order.
They want robots.
And and that's the way the society is set up. It's so enervating of the human potential, the way human beings are treated, it seems to me. So a sense of justice, I guess, and everything. And so it's just interested in everything. And along came people who were thinking that way. And I do have, for whatever it's worth, I did a program with Isaac Asimov, who was a grand man. He was a polymath, and he he was able to, he wrote books on every subject under the sun, astrophysics and everything, Shakespeare, everything. And there was only one thing that he could never get his mind to encompass within a book. He'd write a book like I write a letter home to mother or something. You know, he could do that. I've said that before. But and they were all good and they're related. And he said the only one subject he could never fathom, he just couldn't do it. Astrophysics, mathematics, all that, physics, everything, that's okay. He could not understand economics as a discipline. It's so twisted in everything. But he also said that this is the most privileged time ever in the history of consciousness, apexed by mankind, in terms of mankind's, this is the generation. And by that, I think he meant 1950 to 2050, something like that, where there's going to be a moment of qualitative transformation, much as what occurred when in punctuated equilibrium terms, like 200,000 years ago, when Homo sapien appeared out of what had been Homo habilis or habilis or whatever that was up the hominoid line that brought our species into being, and that we're at that point now. And what a privilege to be living at that kind of a time of qualitative, a paradigm, a paradigm, a paradigm, a paradigm, a paradigm, a paradigm, a paradigms shift. Everything, a gigantic tectonic, or everything. All of our institutions were formulated within a context of being qualitatively changed at the level of capability, in terms of our technologically extended capability through tools and technology and understanding. So we're at a time of like birth. We're like in the birth canal, and the water's about to break, and we're going to come into a world that has never been just in an ecological sense, of where every cell in the organism of the human society is nurtured well and able to realize their full potential and everything, because everything was done within a context where there was never enough and so forth. We've transcended that. And we're coming into a time where we're either going to destroy this aspect of anti-entropic function in the universe, moving across entropy, consciousness, with the weapons that we have that are now species lethal since about 1970, or we're going to liberate the people in a way that has never been from the constraints of the the constrictures and the unjust nature of all of our institutions, which are all authoritarian and so forth. So we live at a qualitatively significant moment in the evolution of universal consciousness. We're going to come to a new relationship in universe. And it's like leaving the birth canal or something. But we're privileged to live in that time. That's the way I feel. So we have an obligation to try and get it right. And I'm very concerned about how, let's not just destroy everything. We have the ability to do that uniquely. Do you think, can you understand that?
Oh, do I understand it? Absolutely. And
we can apparently. Robert J. Lifton, have you read or met or talked with him? Great guy, really beautiful.
Thank you.
And he writes on this, and he says that the weapons are species lethal.
That's right. Yeah.
Wait a minute, they weren't in the Second World War.
No.
So we just go bouncing along and having all the old institutions. We just had an economic meltdown. They don't have understanding.
Well, yes, we had the atom bomb.
We have an atom bomb, but one atom bomb is not enough to wipe out the species.
We've got everything.
It would have to be something that would set off the weapons.
We have a lot of atom bombs.
We have a lot. Yeah. And also the germ things that are really, we also have probably wave weapons that are coming out of the research, black ops, because the leading element by the geopolitical leaders who've run the world is to get weapons so they have an advantage, so they can go steal the grain from tribe B, so their tribe A goes well, and that's all outdated. Okay. Everything is outdated, and we do not have vision from our leadership of what it is we are, what the reality is. And I think one of the hopes of it is things like you're doing, the Course of Miracles, and also public access to cable television, where you've got the people being able to have a say, and that we're making a gigantic change, and it's a privilege and also very, very disquieting to be alive and participant in that sort of a time frame in terms of the evolution of universal consciousness. So all of that is so interesting. And it comes in over the transom every day. A revolution comes in from every field. You can be a lot of different things, but you can't be bored. Do you understand what I'm saying? I didn't mean to bend. It's just, it's so damn interesting. No. The world is so interesting.
The world is very interesting. And it's very challenging.
Yeah.
But if I were to tell you some of the thoughts that I have about this world, you would be...
Tell me some of the thoughts you have here on your 83rd birthday. God bless you. You look 50. You know, you look so good. You must be doing something right.
Well, that's the spirituality that...
Yes, okay.
I mean,
okay,
it's
good.
to give you a positive slant on it.
Yeah.
Because what is spirituality except to think loving thoughts?
Okay, if you say so. Okay.
I mean, no. Well, I'll define it that way.
Mm-hmm.
To really care about the next person.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
love is a big word,
exactly.
isn't it? Yeah.
And it's big.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, what can you tell me about it? You can tell me about so much. What can you tell me about love?
No. I want you to tell me. No, you tell me,
Well, no, I wouldn't.
Beatles said all we need.
This is a conversation. I'm asking you.
Oh.
I'm asking, what do you see love as?
A synergy. It's a synergy. Behavior systems unpredicted by the sum of the parts. There's a resonancy between, even among the cells, there's a resonancy between them. It's not touch. There's a resonancy. Okay. And so the love is I don't know. Boom, 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 boom. Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear birthday. Happy birthday to you. Very good. Well, birthday to you. Pop, pop, pop. Happy birthday to you. Pop, pop, pop. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. You. Bring out the you know what.
Bring out the
you know what. Bring out the you know what. Hey. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Shanti, happy birthday. Ho, ho, ho. Bring out the you know what. Bring out the new yo what. Bring out the new yo what. Bring that item out. And happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Shanti. Happy birthday to you. Let me hold it up, darling. Let me hold it up. A birthday.
That's beautiful, Howard.
Where can we get this in on tight focus, everybody? Bring it in, tight focus. To you. Can you bring it in tight focus, anybody?
It's off.
Oh, we're out, okay?
All right.
We just got it done. Are we still on the air or we're off? Is that it?
It's a wrap. That's
a wrap, everybody. Okay. And there's sizable communities of 189 of them in New York City. So we've got everybody here. There's a lot of room and need for having translation capability and that kind of stuff that's going on. Now back to the public access then. Do you see, are you keeping track, or do you need to, or is it, you know, you've got a lot of things you have to be paying attention to, I understand, and everything, but the public access system as an institution national, we have about 2,000-3,000 of these across the country. They have this unique system of financing that makes it possible for the citizen to come here, produce a program, and not have it be a business. They don't have to make a nut in order to make a program. They can make it available. That's a unique thing, and there's about 3,000 across the country. Do you keep track of that very much, or the significance of public access?
Only really here within the city. I'm familiar, of course, with your channel. I'm familiar with the Brooklyn channel and you know, Queens, Staten Island, and the Bronx channel. So we work with the channels here in the city.
And that's your responsibility. But it does exist at a national scale. It's beginning to reach out. What do you see the connection between, let's say, we would say public access. We're interested in that here. But public access and the emerging internet and the YouTube and the things that are going on in the broader world society in terms of some of the issues of communication.
Well, it's actually a very interesting issue from a number of different perspectives. Clearly, there's a movement of a lot of television here to more of a video-on-demand type of service. People want to watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it. Not
Things are, but that's, if I may, Paul, that's industrial. You're looking at things in the systems way from the beginning of your. You've been looking at those kind of issues.
Yes, we have.
And that's a large one that's confronting the whole human family now.
So we with our channel, our main channel, Channel 25, there, NYC TV, we've taken that channel and created a video-on-demand version of it that's accessible over the internet now.
Okay,
so people
yeah.
can come in via our main webpage, nyc.gov, and essentially access on NYC TV's pages previous shows and look at them on TV, on the internet. So
there's going to be a lot of that in the future.
So one of the things I think we've created, hopefully here, is an environment where the public access can do the same thing.
That'd be good, wouldn't it? Yeah. It's like archiving, like YouTube. And again, there's going to be, you're tracking cyber. Do you have a chance to keep track of what's going on and coming out of the labs and what's coming and that sort of thing in terms of new cyber developments? We're exceeding Moore's law. Things are moving so quickly. And you try to build, back to that question again, how do we lay aside with history when we have institutions, they have to be given account, amortized in an economic sense and all that sort of thing. And then the new capabilities, we have a capability. Do you understand that
understand
problem?
Exactly,
You're dealing with those things. And are you optimistic in terms of the society being able to move into new capability that hasn't been characteristics to make that transition that you helped them do at IRS and other places on a larger tableau?
I'll give you a good example of that. I've been something I was reading about recently. China has now actually surpassed the United States in terms of the number of internet accounts that people have.
Is that right?
Interesting fact.
Yeah,
but
that is.
the number of PCs in China is much less than it is.
What's that? A lot of PCs.
They're all doing it on cell phones.
It's all morphing to the cell phone.
So the cell phones in China have really become the main vehicle for people accessing the internet. It's really much more pronounced there than it is here in this country. So you got to think about that. I mean, you got to think about that as a general trend. And clearly, that whole mobility issue of how do you work with people when you have now a much more mobile environment. It's no longer at a desktop; it's moving around now. So what we've done here in the city for our workforce along these lines is we've created something that we call NICEWIN, New York City Wireless Network, and we've built out our own network here for the city, wireless network. So essentially, all our mobile workers, our policemen, our firemen, our ambulance drivers, they're all connected to us now. So as they drive around the city, they're able to communicate, and we're able to, in a high-speed broadband way now, send information to them that they never could get before. So a fire engine going out to a fire, we can be sending them down building plans. Just as they're on their way to the fire.
Fooling. You could do that, couldn't you?
And policemen, in their car, they're going to get pictures now of warrant shots of potential people they might be arresting or something. So in the past, they've had to go through this whole process of doing it by name. And is this John Smith? Well, there's a lot of John Smiths, right? So a picture solves that problem pretty nice. Exactly. So getting those mug shots down that confirm that they've got the right person, that's a big. So all these technologies, with mobile technologies, we're able to do much more aggressively now. What people don't, everybody says to me, well, Wi-Fi is out there, so you should be able to do it with Wi-Fi. Well, Wi-Fi is not it's not a mobile technology. You need a mobile wireless network, and that's what we've built. So this whole idea of mobility is clearly the number one area that we need to focus on these days.
And that goes into the whole question of everything, the technological development that's coming. And
so back to the Dick Tracy days with the automated catch.
You had the wristwatch. You were talking to it. I remember the first time I was on a bus and I was driving coming up 8th Avenue, and somebody started talking out to themselves. And I thought, there's another poor soul that's gone into schizophrenia. And she was talking on the cell phone. Now it's just a common occurrence. So there's a lot of the technology can be a double-edged sword. It can be good. It can be bad.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of ethics involved in that sort of thing.
Yes.
This again, I don't like to keep coming back to it, but this idea of having communications capability set aside for the people, that public access to cable television is unique. And I'm wondering if that is something. Are you in touch with people in San Francisco in your level of responsibility for that venue there? You're here in New York, they're there. As far as it relates to this issue, let me just bring it up since we're on a public access. As an institutional entity, this public access cable television networks that exist across the country, or people that are dealing with them.
Well, I'll tell you.
And how do they deal with it in other places, San Francisco, Los Angeles? Because I know we got 3,000.
I'll be very honest on that issue. No, we're not. No, because I really am not the spokesman for public access in New York here. You know, and so to be very honest, I'm not. Where I am working right now with my fellow people holding my job in San Francisco and other places is on a very critical issue right now.
Yeah.
And this is one your readers, your viewers here should know about, and that is, you know, hopefully most of them are aware of this, but in February next year there isn't going to be any analog television broadcast anymore, and so as that happens, that space that analog television was being used is going to get freed up, and there's a lot of debate still going on about the availability of that for public safety. Okay. So I'm leading a charge right now, working with my fellow chief information officers around the country and the other large cities about trying to convince the FCC how we want that provided to us, because they've got this view in Washington about how they want to do it from a national perspective. Yeah. It's not going to work.
What address it? What?
Because we need to have control locally, and how you build wireless systems to take advantage of the spectrum, is what it's called up there. In New York City, with our with our tall skyscrapers, is very different than you're doing it out in the Great Plains. So once I done fit all here, and we've been spending. I was down in Washington yesterday. We spent a lot of time with our folks, the folks down there at the FCC and stuff, trying to educate them on this issue, because what we need is a way to build these systems more from the bottom up, from the local areas, and then we'll interconnect ourselves. They're very concerned, and a lot of this came about after 9/11, that there wasn't good governmental communications using these technologies.
Tunnel vision. They couldn't talk to one another.
So they're very bureaucracy. They want to encourage us from DC perspective to have more interoperability. So you know, we can talk with all our other counterparts around the country on radios and things of that sort. And we agree with that. Yeah. But we just don't think building it from the top down is going to work. We need to build it from the bottom up. And so we're working as a coalition around the country on that issue. Next time I talk with that group, I'll ask them about the public access.
Well, it's something I think is important, because it's a unique thing, and it's unique in the way it's financed. Yes. You've got something here for the people, which is unique to communications, it seems to me, and it's something worth taking attention to. And then also your idea of, you know, like they talk in cyber language, Norbert Wiener, who coined the term, he used to speak about information overload. You get information overload, it prevents patterns. So you're looking for patterns that you can get that are at another level, and where there's efficiencies and so forth can be realized. And I hear you saying you want it bottom up. I think there's a lot of people who want things bottom up, and that there's a thing, again, if there's something like democracy, where you're trying to level and make reasonably available to the people the ability to compete in terms of the creation and distribution of multimedia television, this is a unique model that exists that ought to be encouraged by people who are of a democratic inclination toward the society. Don't you think?
Agree 100%.
I thank you very much for having helped put this context together where there's going to be continued support for that. And I would hope that would continue, because I think it's an important development.
Absolutely.
Beyond that, if I could, there's a thing, the producers. Now, you got the producers, then you have the people who run these systems and so forth. Then you have the actual citizens or producers. And that's another thing, that you've got people that are, like, say, I'm a producer. I'm not a member of the staff here or something like that. We're producers. We got producers. So that their interests are things that could be entered into the public dialogue through this avenue by which we're closest to the people. The producers are closest to the actual people that make up the society. So it's an important avenue for people to get information from what the people on the ground, the real honest-to-God people in the ground, are thinking and feeling. And that's something that's unique to most systems of communication that have been top down from central headquarters, putting a broadcast signal out for everybody to receive. Sure. This entry, and it also, if I may, it sort of melds with in a pattern way with the morphing over to the cell phone universe that you cited from China and so forth. So democracy and getting word from the people is something we ought to, people in responsible positions for the society, ought to keep notice of.
Absolutely. What you're talking about fits into this whole model that we've been considering a lot in government called Web 2.0, which or Government 2.0.
I've heard of it. I don't know.
Well, it's really all the social networking technologies and bringing them into government, and so we can get more democracy in terms of people talking.
Take advantage of the technological things that are coming out of the
It's interesting as you were talking about public access television. And the ability of people to just produce, from those that are interested in doing that, like yourself,
without it having to become a big business deal that they necessarily have to do.
But it's interesting. YouTube, of course, does that as well on a low-scale basis. You're doing it here on a much more professional basis.
Well, yeah, you're making
and so the quality of what you're doing is much higher.
Well, it would be, and it's also right direct to the people at the local area. And we've got 3,000 of these across the country. It's a pretty. We think it's important in access, but we happen to be there. But it is an opening to democracy, and it seems to me democracy may be in the air. And it's said, again, the unique way in which it was done, I don't think everything else is done within the loci of either corporate, profit, private sector, profit, government, tax and spend and regulate. That's the way everything's done. But this was something from the civil society.
Sure.
And I think we want to have voices from that civil society and avenues where they can contribute in a reasonably competitive way with the big players who have all that capital behind them helping them put those things together, But anyway, so I really thank you for coming in, busy schedule. And it's a pleasure talking to you and getting a background on all the work you've done. I really thank you very much for coming in.
Great.
Wish you all the very best as you proceed along. Having a good time. You like New York City?
I love it. I'm glad to be back in New York.
I've
traveled around a lot, and I'm glad I'm back here again.
Yeah, I don't know why Dorothy wanted to go back to Kansas. I'd want to go back to Manhattan if I had my druthers.
I just wish the Yankees were doing a little better. That'd be good.
The last games, the stadium, the last game's tomorrow night, huh?
Yeah,
Are you going to go there for? Are you going to sing Old Lang Syne?
I didn't get a ticket.
You didn't get the ticket. You couldn't get it on that one.
It's going to be a sad event, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, listen, Paul.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure. We just got started talking. It was really a pleasure for you to have Paul Cosgrave. Then again, he's the commissioner within the mayor's office for the Office of Telecommunications and
Technology and Telecommunications.
Technology and Telecommunications, and he has responsibility among many others for helping negotiate the arrangement by which public access exists, for which we thank you and wish you all the best in that venue. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, tune in. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for now. Once again, Paul, thanks very, very much for coming in. My pleasure. It was really a pleasure. So we have to stay until they finish the credits and so forth. Okay. But so I believe in this public access, and I think it's really important. But one tends to think what they're doing is important.
Now, you've been doing public access. We were talking 20, 30 years ago.
Well, yeah.
You've been in public access the whole time?
Well, this program that you've just been a guest of is, I think, the longest one running in the country. I've been doing it since the beginning. I got the use of about the third, what they called them then in the old days, Portapack. And it was all coming out of Japan. It was a video machine where an individual could make television. And it was a big old thing, in black and white, 20-minute black and white.
Wow. But
we went off with that and did programs through about 1969 or so. But the technology simply wasn't there before. And as I indicated to you all, it was black and white. You said black and white, but the color came later. But it was kinescope, and it was film. There was no television until Mr. Goldmark Sr. invented videotape, and we were off to the races.
That is amazing.
But now it's going quickly, and it's merging into the world of cyber, and it's a major source of optimism, perhaps.